Hey, everybody, welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. Yeah, quick announcement. The video that I mentioned about the movie that came out, excuse me, the music video on the song that Tata Prince, and you're going to see the interview I did with him. That song, Love One Another, just came out, and so did the video, and you're going to hear more about it. But this conversation of love is so important. And it really goes beyond any song, any music video. It really does go beyond that. Just like creating a world of love was important for that young man, it is so important for the two people I have here today, grandfather and grandson. Two people connected. Maybe they're connected by lineage, but it's much more than that. So when you hear Dr. Bernie Siegel, if you don't know who Dr. Bernie Siegel is, I will tell you. But when you hear Bernie and Charlie Siegel, both authors of this fantastic book, when you realize how perfect everything is, and this is a conversation about life between grandfather and grandson, but it's much more than that. This is a book that takes you on a journey of wonder, of grace. New York Times bestselling author Bernie Siegel and his grandson Charlie Siegel. Your hearts will open up as both grandfather and grandson create this tapestry of love and energy through their writings and their poetry in this book. And as I read this, and I hope during this show, I don't know if I want to experience it again. Some of the things that they have written touch so beautifully in the heart and also so powerfully. At several times as I'm reading the book, I was so touched, especially by eternity and the entire section on God, that tears came to my eyes. But what is it you should know about the message they are bringing? What you should know is that both Bernie and Charlie remind us, as you've heard me talk about in my own life, that sometimes we're all knocked down. We're knocked down by life events. We're knocked down by the challenges. We're knocked down by COVID-19. We're knocked down by the way that we may or may not have jobs today. We're knocked down by illness. We're knocked down by people that have disappointed us. But it's not about that. And certainly what I've learned is what they're sharing. It's about rising back up that counts. And when we dare to experience life to its fullest, all of the imperfections that come with it, it gives us an opportunity to grow beyond measure. And I say grow beyond measure because even in the work that Maslow did, he could not define the true essence of self-actualization. But today, joining me, grandfather and grandson, come together to not just talk about the wisdom of the ages to help men and women of all ages, but they will share the deep, soulful, heart, generational, past life connection of what it means to bring the profound insights in their poetry to life, to my life, to your life. And for everyone out there that needs something to hold on to be encouraged by their deep faith, their writings, their messages of hope, but more importantly, they're like fun, totally fun. So let me introduce all of you, if you don't know him, Dr. Bernie Siegel and the most amazing Charlie Siegel. Hey, welcome to both of you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I have recently been talking about my relationship with my grandparents, and I didn't quite get to take the journey of where I am, in this physical world with them, but they're always with me. You both are coming to the forefront because what you've done is you're sharing this conversation of love that goes across multiple generations and what it means to go beyond the obstacles and the challenges of life. But we still get them. And I want to start out with you, Charlie, about this because I was just thinking, what was it like for you to have your grandfather be Dr. Bernie Siegel. And I had that very lovingly thought, but it comes with a path of your development that only you can share personally. What was it like?
I think it's pretty awesome. It's great to be able to share in this together and to write a book together. You know, his work is amazing and has touched so many, and to have him support my work and see what he sees and what I do means a lot to get to share in this. I talk a lot about the kind of the messages in my work and stuff come a lot of times from my mom's teaching and from my mom's side, and then seeing my grandpa Bernie be reaching so many with such a healing message. That's, you know, I have it on both sides that way, and to get to sharing this together is awesome.
I love it. Bernie, you know, one of the things I had to laugh about, and I'm still laughing about it, is the book opens up with a quote, an anonymous quote, and it says, "When you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh laugh at the sky." And I can't help doing that, right? I mean, I knew I was getting ready for this interview, but I couldn't help think about that and think about what that meant to me, but also laugh about it. You know, it's an interesting quote. What makes you laugh about that when you think about the realization of how perfect everything is?
Well, you know, life, it's an experience. It's a gift to all of us. And, you know, what we do with it is a whole other story. Because I think, like you talked about your grandmother, my grandmother saved my life. It's a long story about how sick my mother was and wasn't supposed to have children. And by the time they dragged me out of her because she couldn't survive a cesarean section, she said, they handed me a purple melon, not a child. So we put you in, you know, blankets and then in a carriage, covered the carriage and put you behind the house so nobody'd get upset. And as a physician, I didn't learn this till I was an adult, because I always say there are no pictures in the album to verify it. You know what I mean? They're just pictures of a covered carriage. And I said to my mother, how the hell did I survive as an infant? Nobody's touching me. Oh, my mother took you, poured oil all over you and pushed everything back where it belonged 4 and 5 times a day. So I realized I must have felt like the most loved kid on the planet because I'm getting massaged. And that, over 50 years later, when a woman massaged my shaved head, I became that infant again, opened my eyes, and the room was filled with people. The quote, you know, why you all here? Oh, we thought you had a heart attack or a stroke. We couldn't communicate with you. I said, yeah, I became an infant. I couldn't communicate, but it was a bliss for me. And so I'd say again, why they're called grandparents is they know how to take care of the kids. And she saved my life, and I'm sure was an enormous part of who I was and what I was, and feeling loved, and, you know, being comfortable with myself, and who I was. You know, it wasn't that I had to be somebody or do something. I was loved, and that's what created my life. And you know, my parents also joined in later, and pictures began to show up in the album like 3 or 4 months later from a distance. I found all these things, and you know, once I understood myself and who I was, it was a hell of a lot easier to live. But I think we're here. Here is something on my desk that I see every day from Leo Roston. I cannot believe that the purpose of life is to be happy. I think the purpose of life is to be useful, to be responsible, to be compassionate. It is above all to matter, to count, to stand for something, to have made some difference that you lived at all. That's Leo Roston. And I think Charlie lives like that. And that's what connected us. Because as I was putting together a book with some spiritual stuff, it's called, and it just came out, No Endings, Only Beginnings. It's a lot of, you know, chapters of things that I've lived and felt. But talking to him was like talking, in a sense, to myself in terms of our interests, what what was within us. And I felt amazed that at his age, it's like talking to your twin brother, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And how many years it took me and how much pain it took me to write the poems and become the person I am, trying to understand, why did God make a world like this? You see, like that Leo Roston, that sounds wonderful, but why is a kid born with congenital defects? Why do people get cancer? I mean, how the hell do I fit that into being useful? And I think part of my becoming a surgeon was I wanted to help people and try to fix things. And then the shock was, you can't fix everything.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, even today, the patients I remember are the ones who had all kinds of problems that I couldn't fix. They are in my mind.
Yeah.
The ones who had wonderful results, thank me for everything, I can't remember them. But what stays in your heart is, again, how do you question creation? Who the hell did this? Why do we have all these troubles? And I'm always saying that I finally realized with time that if the world were perfect, we wouldn't have your show. We wouldn't be visiting. We wouldn't need anything.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And
No.
it's, again, back to what that quote, we're here to be useful. We're here to put on the show, to make it meaningful. It's not just automatic. Yeah. And to have the right Lord. That's another thing. That who are you working for? See, who are you being useful for? And you got to have faith in the right person. And that was something I struggled with to learn from Abraham, Jesus. How the hell could they agree with God and let all these things that they were asked to do happen? Because I can tell you, early in my life, I would have argued with God about what he's deciding to do, and give him other alternatives, showing I didn't have faith. He'd ask me to do something and I'd say, hey, I got another solution to this. Why kill my kid? Why crucify? Let's work something else out. But I've gotten past that point and I understand now.
I love that you're talking about that, because I've recently started to talk about that, Charlie, too. I mean, one of the things that I think is so important about this book and about what you both bring is I'm having moments where I think my life is surreal. Certainly, Charlie, Dr. Bernie Siegel, we know in the world, there's not many people in the shows I've done in 16 years that don't understand what that name has come to mean. But for me, and Charlie, this is for you, my evolution over 16 years was not just to understand what the body of work that Bernie Siegel has done has come to mean, but what is that body of work going to help me do to bring more love, more purpose in the world? It's one thing to say, oh, damn, I wish I would have interviewed Bernie on that, or we couldn't. No, but what is it that has changed me inside? Because Bernie, I'm like you. I went most of my life thinking, why did my mom kill herself? What was that about? Why did I cry for 4 years? And I had, like you, my mom was an alcoholic and an addict, and I was popped into this world with that. But Italian family, Zambuca, you just throw it on their gums and it quiets everybody down. Grandma taught me how to make the perfect meatball. So Charlie, no kidding, secret recipe. It's all in the cheese. I'm telling you, it's all in the cheese you pick. But for you, Charlie, what have been the profound insights, especially writing this book together? I mean, clearly when people read this book, they're going to get what we're talking about today. But what was it about this relationship you're cultivating with, your grandfather that is going to always be in you in this life and beyond? What is it about this that has touched you so deeply? And I'm not saying you're done yet with your life and maturing and growing up and developing. You're like not done, but you're probably like 5-10 10 different souls. But what is it though? Because you're
So
a
it's yeah, it's pretty remarkable that so we wrote the poetry that's in the book separately, like as our own body of work in our own situations. A lot of his poetry was from journals he was writing through like the 80s and 90s. A lot of my poetry goes back to like 2013 or so. I started writing up to present is for what's in the book. With the intention that I wanted to get to share different spiritual lessons I've got to learn along the way, that I feel like I've been blessed with. Some of the stuff is things like different inspirations from experiences in life, but a lot of my stuff is like metaphoric kind of things and giving people a different perspective. So I had written a bunch of different poems, and as he said, he was working on his other book and asked me for some things that he might be able to print in it and have a discussion. So I sent him mine, he sent me his. Looking over our poetry we had written separately, it was amazing. Like there's one in the chapter Nature Our Teacher in our book that he wrote a poem called Trees. I wrote a poem called My Brother Trees. It's so similar. We've written on like footprints and what that can represent. We've written on how nature teaches us and on destiny. And there's 7 different sections that go through our book. It's a evolving chapter about life, including chapters on inner light, on God and relationships. But we looked over our work and it was like we were having this kind of conversation, years apart and different experiences and like a subconscious conversation between us. So it was really like, let's line these up in the conversation that they are, and the book came out of it. So we both write in wanting to help people, to uplift them, to help them find a positive outlook on things and connect with themselves more. And then we see, we're both sharing in this work. Let's share in it and have a project together. So it means a lot to get to do that.
And I hope you both will read some of these today on the show, because it's hard for me to explain how powerful these are. As I went through them and I was looking, I was reflecting. And there's one, Bernie, that you did that it literally reminded me of an event in my life that I don't think about that often. But as I was reading it, I just started to cry. And I thought about literally how God took the wheel one day in an incident in my life where I did something quite careless in pulling off on the highway in the coast of California. And I left my best friend Linda, who booked this show, in the car, and just had to stop, had to see it, got out of the car, didn't put the car in park on a cliff with no barrier. And I mean, when I read this, I literally started to cry, because you have moments in life where you realize that you are not at the driver's wheel. It is not you, because the way that we were able, I turned around right at the right moment. Well, who did that? Was that really me, Bernie? No, that wasn't me. I didn't turn around right at the right moment all by myself, but I was guided to turn around to see the car start to move towards the end of the cliff with my best friend since 1972 in it. I left the car door open. Thank you, God, for that. I ran, I jumped in the car. Now, here you are, you don't think about these things, because she was clearly going to drop off of a very large cliff. Jump in the car, hit the brakes just in time. So when I'm reading this poem, I made the wrong turn on the parkway. I made the wrong turn on the parkway. There was no sign or symptom to guide me. And I didn't ask for directions. I had to reverse myself. It was hard, but I did. I took a deep breath. Let God take the wheel, and everything went in the right direction. And that's the beginning of it. And I want to ask you, Bernie, about that. And then Charlie, I want to talk with you, because we're going to take a short break and then I'm going to come back. God, I'm having a hard time not crying right now. I only read the first part of that, Bernie.
Right.
It does go on.
I can read the end.
Please.
it says, let God take the wheel. And everything went in the right direction. God has had her driver's license longer than I have. I didn't think I missed anything, but who knows what the good Lord wanted me to miss that I am better off not running into. I guess I took the right turn and learned how to turn things around. Thank God. Yeah.
I'll tell you, when I read that, I could feel you in that.
Yeah. Well, I've learned that there are no coincidences, is the way I put it now. That we are creating our future by all the decisions we make every day. So it's not a coincidence. And, if you're creating your future, again, it's not blaming somebody, but you're making decisions every day. Which road do I take? Which turn? I had to laugh because one day I was coming to, driving to a lecture and I got lost. And as I pulled down the street, a car is in front of me that said, I'm lost on the license plate. So I drove over to them and I said, I'm lost. And he gave me directions. But to have a license plate like I'm lost. Another time when I was lost, I told this fellow where I was going, another driver. He said, I have no idea where that street is, but I can direct you to the police station. The police station was on the street I was looking for. And again, it's like, how did that happen? And I don't think, again, as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross always used to say this to me,
Yeah.
there are no coincidences.
Right.
And yeah, that's why I love opening the book while we're on a program. And it's just like, boom, this is something Charlie wrote. It's only 4 lines. Where are you? Said the caterpillar. Right here, said the butterfly inside of him. Where am I? Said I. Right here, said my soul from inside my heart. And see, that's what impresses the hell out of me about Charlie at his age. Where does that come from? So he's got somebody living in him that in another life probably was a very special soul. And it's still coming forth in Charlie. Because I say it in the same way that when you see a 5-year-old on television playing a violin, you say, how the hell did they manage to do that? It's the soul that's in them, from a past life. And I say, so whether it's me, you, or Charlie, we have those souls in us that direct us in this life, making choices. And when I say direct, I don't mean it's conscious, but we're making choices and they're coming from a past experience.
Yeah, you're right about this, Charlie. There is something I think you wrote, and I want to talk to you about it if we could, because I was reading it and I just thought, I know in the book publishing and writing arena, a book doesn't get written the day before you do the interview. That's like not how that works, right? But what you both have written in here is really important for the time we're living in. And I think you wrote, Charlie, it was you that wrote, I made a note of this. Was it you that wrote The Girl Who Could Paint the Sky?
Yep.
You wrote that, right? Okay, so I'm reading this again. I'm having a crying moment. Sorry. But I grew up in New York and I know what it's like to live in the projects. But my escape from the cockroaches, right, was because I didn't want to sleep. And as I bounced from relative to relative, I had to go to Aunt Mary, nicknamed Mrs. Meany. I apologize for that, by the way, later on in life. But I called her Mrs. Meany for a good reason. But I couldn't sleep in our house in the bedroom because of the cockroaches. So I would sleep on the fire escape. And I'm reading this, and again, I had this moment of a message for our time. Now, you said you write metaphorically. That might be true. But you write to me in a way that transcends the physical, the spiritual, and my field totally transcends the psychological perspective. Because if we don't have faith and works together to help change this world, then we are going to stay in our bubble and be gone. But that message, can you talk to that? Because I'm thinking, who wrote this? Who is this genius? I mean, what century did that come from? Tell us about that. And perhaps you might read it for us if you don't mind. I don't want to put you both on a spot.
No, yeah, glad to read some from it. I'm just going to turn to it now.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I wrote that, it's so some of my work is like, so I talk about some of the messages in my work is that I grew up spending a lot of time in my mom's store and class center, Wisdom of the Ages in Connecticut. She started that when I was 3 and I was homeschooled. So I did a lot of my schoolwork in the back of the store, hearing her teach meditation, teach spiritual classes, help people with what they're going through, and that I now help run the store alongside her. So it's become like everyday life kind of thing to think about that spirituality and focus on how to help people and help ourselves. And my writing and my photography that illustrates our book, and I have a business with that, has become like my own facet of the same kind of spiritual practice. But like following your heart and doing what you feel right about doing in life, it can be a more difficult path sometimes to make things work and to have it all come together. Like I worked as a waiter for a few years to like pay the car bill while I'm working on my photography business, and like I have some close people that support my work and this, like the starting process of it back when I was starting it. But then there's a lot of those people that say like, you can't make money as an author and a photographer, or like, don't do that, go do this. So I wrote The Girl Who Could Paint the Sky, which it's a short story, and printed in our book here is an excerpt from it, probably about 3/4 of it. And it talks about that idea that when you have something in your heart that says like, this is what I'm meant to do, and it's something that's going to help people and make a positive difference, and you have people that say not to. It's like, what do you do with that? And how do you work through it? How do you listen to that? And this story came out of it. The imagery of it also was, I got to photograph in Iceland twice, studying photography and doing it in the field. And some of my work illustrates this is our book here, illustrates it. And there was one night of this incredible sunset, and we had an arching rainbow that connected down onto the ground on both ends with the sunset on the other side. And some of that imagery was inspired in the story also. Yeah, I can read that. It's in our Destiny chapter in our book.
Wow.
She was the girl who could paint the sky. Her heart told her so. But the other townsfolk, they said she could not. They said that they could not, so neither could she. But her heart told her to try. But try as she did, their words kept the sky a soft pale gray. With their words in the way, her work could not be done. So she went atop the mountain to hear what the sky would say. With her back to the wind and her voice to the clouds, she found that her spirit had the strength to soar high while walking upon the ground. So she let their words blow off like the clouds in a tempest storm. She let them be turned to love, to return to the people with the colors of the evening light. Their doubts and hers too transitioned to hope at the touch of her fingertips.
I want to just let everybody know, we're going to take a short break and then we're going to come back. Can you tell folks, first of all, how they can find out about each of you, Charlie, and then how they can get a copy of the book? Give people the information they need to have for this. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the imagery that's included in the book and the power of bringing messages together, multi-generational messages together, to present a powerful, much needed message of love. How do people find out about this in the book, Charlie?
So our book is When You Realize How Perfect Everything Is, and it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and pretty much anywhere you could get a book. But it's also available through my mom's store. You can get it right from me and get autographed copies that way. It's wisdomoftheages.biz, B-I-Z. And then my grandfather has BernieSiegelMD.com, and that both of those two websites are linked, and you can read a lot of articles he's written and stuff too.
And when we come back, I'm going to ask each of you to pick something to read that represents the importance of where we are in this day and age and the message for all time. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Look, when you realize how perfect everything is, this is a conversation about life between grandfather and grandson, Bernie Siegel, Dr. Bernie Siegel, and Charlie Siegel, and they're both here with us today. And I'm thrilled and I'm also honored to have them both here to actually share with you from the book, because the book, you know, as it's described by a lot of people, it's a book. It includes poetry, messages, but they're powerful. They're much more than that. You know, they represent the connection, the love, the challenges that have been overcome between grandson and grandfather. They really address what each of us probably doesn't know how to express in ourselves in the day and age we live in. And that's coupled by the beauty of photography. Thank you both again. Charlie, would you mind mentioning again, because sometimes we just zip by and I forget to ask. I want people to know how they can get their copy and also to know more about you both.
Yeah, so I'll hold it up again. When you realize how perfect everything is, it's available now on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and pretty much anywhere books are sold. Or you can check out the website for my mom's store, wisdomoftheages.biz, B-I-Z. There's a page on there. It says Charlie Siegel, author, and photography by SC is my photography company. That talks about some of the photography in the book, and there's a page that has my grandfather's items listed also. You can email us to get an autographed one, or you can pick up the book anywhere also. And my grandfather has BernieSiegelMD.com too.
Thank you. I want to ask each of you, I know the journey in writing a book like this is a story in itself, but as you look back, you know, is there one contribution in the book or another that really calls you to share today for the time we live in? You know, Bernie, how about you? Charlie, how about you? Is there something in the book you
read
can
you
share?
something I had opened to because I get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
I am asked to be prepared for eternity. How do I prepare? Where will I spend it? Fine questions for philosophers. I don't have that problem. Eternity troubles me not at all. I am having trouble with today. If I can master today, eternity will take care of itself. Eternity, from what I know of it, can't be as much trouble as today. When eternity comes, I'll take it one day at a time. And again, I can't tell you where that came from, but it's the real answer. You know, one day at a time. You know, when you start predicting your future, you're making a mess out of your life. And as I say, that's what I learned to do, not picture it, because then I'm creating it. That's something I realized as a surgeon. In other words, if you picture your operation as horrible, terrible response to your treatment, your body believes it. So I learned that my mind, my soul, they're in charge of my life. And that what I believe, my body believes, because that's what it's told all the time. And that there are no coincidences and no accidents. And that what we call miracles or spontaneous remissions are self-induced. You know, your body gets a message of love and it responds. And literally, diseases disappeared. That's why I began to run support groups to teach people what those who didn't die when they were supposed to were doing.
Right.
You know, I studied success, not failure. And I learned how important the words of your mother, your doctor, you know, if they were saying things to you and you believed them, they could save your life or destroy it. And that's why on my website is an article entitled Deceiving People into Health. Because I learned that by doing a lot of children's surgery, that the kids believed me and their parents. So we lied to them. Now you say, what do you mean you lied to them? For their benefit. I always say the simplest one was taking an alcohol sponge, saying, oh, they made new ones. Now it'll numb your skin besides cleaning it. And the kids would look at me, why don't the other doctors do that?
Yeah, right.
You know, because it was incredible. 80% of them would feel no pain at all, just from that crazy comment. About 20% would say, I felt it, you know, oh, bad sponge, you know. And again, they had more faith in me and their parents because we were using our words to heal them. And again, we all need to learn what I call survival behavior. And I have to say that psychiatrists know more about it than doctors, you know, than family doctors and oncologists and so forth, because the psychiatrist is seeing somebody with all kinds of emotional problems, dealing with life-threatening illness, and they notice that there are personality qualities to survivors. And the doctors, you know, would say, oh, you had a good response to treatment. They aren't aware of what went on in the person's life. They're just looking at, here's your pill, here's your injection, and not about what the person did to help them.
No
And it's
kidding.
all about, you know, you talk about eternity, we're talking about your life. Your childhood is stored in your body. I mean, let me just, one quick example.
Sure.
That I always said to people, how would you describe your illness? What are you going through? And anybody listening to this, if you got a problem in your life, what word do you use to describe it? Then when they came up with the word, I'd say, how does that fit your life? I'm not interested in how it fits your illness. How does it fit your life? So a woman who said failure and meant my body failed me, I have cancer, said, oh, my parents committed suicide when I was a child. I must have been a failure as a child.
Mm.
She was living her whole life as this failure.
Ah,
And, you know, I've met people whose parents committed suicide, alcoholics, drug addicts, told their children to commit suicide. And then, you know, one of the children would walk in mad as hell at life and the world. And I learned that if I could reparent them, become their chosen dad, as one kid said, I saved their lives. You know, I made them feel somebody cared, I'm worth something. And well, I'll give you a quote from a lady. I asked her to have a picture of herself as a child so I could show her she's, you know, beautiful and meaningful. She said, my parents never took a picture. I can't give you any. But she said, when I let love into my prison, it changed every negative item in it, meaning the experiences in my life, and turned them into something meaningful. And boy, did she outlive every expectation with an autoimmune disease and lived for decades, you know, when doctors were predicting a few years and you'll be dead.
right.
But she drove them crazy because she didn't die. And they had to try to figure out, what do we do to help her, you know, because she isn't dying. Yeah.
Right. Right. But that is so powerful to share. Because there's something about that you know, it's funny. I too learned that because my friends didn't understand why I wasn't talking about my illness when I went through it. And, you know, I had my own reasons for that. But more importantly, I didn't think I'd be able to get through it and heal if I was taking on everybody's feelings of it. And now looking back, I know that that's true. I know that that's true now. But more importantly, it was the journey that I went on to have to change in that way. Something
Right.
you talked about earlier about faith and belief and possibilities. And, you know, Charlie, one of the things I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you've picked one of these out. If you haven't, there's one of yours that also called to me. Did you pick one of yours out?
I did, but it's a short one. Maybe we can do both.
Okay, you do yours first, and then I'm going to ask you to do mine.
Okay. Looking at one you had asked for something that would fit what we're going through right now, I wanted to read one of mine called When Peace Becomes You. And this is interesting that it's one that I got up one morning and this poem was in my head, and I was gonna like, oh, I'll go get ready and then I'll write it down. I was like, no, I should write this down now while I still have it. And it just kind of flowed out. It says, and it is when the peace overwhelms you and you step into the peace and you become one with the peace, that you realize the peace is a part of your soul, part of your intellect, that then you can become a conveyor of the peace and you can allow it to spread free upon the land for all to be at peace and all is all right. So if we look at that, like there's this great peace that is within us and surrounds us, and it takes connecting to it and finding it and realizing you're a part of it, to recognize what a part of it you are, and be able to spread it and share it with people. But like that piece is out there and inside you. So it's to people to take the time to settle and connect with that. It can make all the difference.
I have to squeeze something in about
Sure.
peace. We have 5 children. The kitchen was a disaster area. I came in, I said at the top of my voice, "You may choose peace or you may choose conflict." The twins that we had have a hearing impairment. And our daughter answered, "I'll have a pizza." And so the whole family busted out laughing and the argument was finished, you know? And that's again what love, laughter, all these things that we're trying to help bring into people's lives and to heal those wounds. Yeah.
And I think that's it. Laughter is such a part of it.
Yep.
So there are 2 that I found that just hit me again. One was, I think it's called Open-Ended Road, but the other one that hit me was Finding God.
Mm.
And Finding God hit me because, you know, addiction and recovery was part of my family's journey. I'm actually the only one still alive to actually talk about it.
Yeah.
2 sisters put them in the ground a couple years ago. I told you about my mom's suicide. My sister died on a hospital floor in Yonkers. And so Finding God, right? I remember being in my recovery program and I said something to my sponsor like, you know, I'm never going to find God. And his answer to me was, "Oh, guess what? Newsflash, God's not lost." But this particular poem, Charlie, I think you wrote this, right? Finding God. Did you write that?
Yeah, that's one of mine.
Would you mind sharing that? And then
Sure.
I just love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so the last chapter of our book is Hello God. We made it like our conversation, that the way we align them evolves from more of a personal life perspective into more of a grander spirituality perspective. So
Yep.
This poem opens that last chapter. And I heard them say that God is everywhere, but I was unsure of how to see him. So I asked them where exactly I could find him, and they pointed to my heart, and I knew that that was my place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to tell you that I'm not sure how that comes to each person.
Mm.
I know how it was a process to come to me. And I don't know that the definition that we have, like in the Webster, of surrender, I just don't think that definition describes what that really means. I want to ask you, Charlie, thank you for that. It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
certainly everything in this particular part of the book is profound. I mean, including, you know, Bernie, what you wrote From a Distance. But Bernie, I want to ask you about this because I have a sense that your evolution in like they say, knowing God is quite similar to mine. But this was a very important part of the book. What did it mean for you, Bernie?
About God, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, it started way back when I questioned God. It's hard for me to have faith in a God that makes a world that has all these troubles.
Yeah.
And I realized, as I said, when God said to me, "Bernie, a perfect world is not creation, it's a magic trick that you're here to live and learn." So God talks to me a lot. And yeah, and the message, God is always talking in parables, drives me crazy. One day he said, "I can't understand what's going on." Bernie said, he said, "Bernie, you're a satellite dish, a remote control, and a television screen." I said, "Excuse me, what are you talking about?" He said, "That's what you are. That's your life." I said, what? He said, look, satellite dish has many options. So do you. I gave you a remote control to pick a channel. I gave you a brain to decide on what channel you're tuning to. And I gave you a body to display it like a television screen. And I realized who my Lord is what my whole life is about. If it's money, what am I going to act like? You know, if it's faith, if it's here to accomplish something, I always say, I try to be God's right arm. You know, I'd like to do things. So when I pray and talk to God in the morning, when I'm out in nature, I let God know, hey, I'm here to do what you want. You know, every once in a while I may ask for help, but hey, you know, I got my aches and pains too. So if you can, but I know God is there as a resource. I know that I have the ability to do what I need to do. You know, I don't need a miracle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
And that belief and that faith make an enormous difference. I mean, this is sort of an aside, but when they've run tests taking Lourdes holy water and label it Brooklyn, New York, and label Brooklyn, New York, Lourdes holy water, more people respond to the label, you see. So it's our attitude, our mind, our faith have so much to do with our whole life and literally the chemistry in our body. I was criticized so much 34 years ago when we wrote these poems. Everybody was talking about the controversial Dr. Siegel. I mean, the good part and exciting part was I was on every famous talk show, so
Yeah,
people could yell at me, you know,
yeah,
and criticize me. But
that's
I'll tell
right.
you, I was impressed with Phil Donahue. Let me get just one moment on that. We came with three women with cancer, and I expected I'll go up on the stage. He said, no, Bernie, you sit in the audience. I'm putting the women up there. Oh, I love it.
Right.
Because he
Exactly.
knew they were my teachers, see, dealing with life and pain and not cursing God and saying, why did you do this to me? Why did you? Yeah, they were healing and teaching. And that's what we all have to learn.
Yeah.
Instead of cursing what happens, say, what am I to learn from this?
Oh, there's no question about it. I hope
I
you both
covered
come back.
in drawings I did. You know, Charlie takes photographs. I do paintings, portraits.
Yes.
But in drawings I did, I used white on a white piece of paper. When I painted myself in a cap, mask, and gown, so you don't even know it's me. And Elizabeth was the first one who said to me, what are you covering up? And I said, why are you asking? And then she said all these things I did. When if you got a white piece of paper, what do you need a white crayon for? You know, to add a layer. And I realized I was burying all that pain and
Yeah.
it needed to come out. And so the poems, the paintings, helping other people, yeah, then my pain became meaningful. You turn it into something. And I have poems by patients, one comparing pregnancy to 12 months of chemotherapy and radiation. See, the poems end the same. 9 months pass, 12 months pass. I give birth to my child, I give birth to myself. All the discomfort and pain is now justified. So when people saw what they were doing as giving birth to themselves in life, it was a very different response and result.
Thank you. Look, I hope you both will come back. And you're absolutely right about that. I give thanks every day for that. I want to thank you both. I want to thank everybody for tuning us in. And man, I just love what you both have done. Thank you, everybody, for tuning us in. We'll see you next time.